Hi, everyone. This is Metropolis Planet Positive Product Live, and I'm your host, Avi Rajagopal, Editor-in-Chief of Metropolis. Today, we're talking to the people behind the winners of the Metropolis Planet Positive Awards, which are products that make a positive impact on both people and the planet. And my next guest is behind an amazing achievement at Humanscale. I'm so happy to have with me Jane Abernathy, Chief Sustainability Officer at Humanscale. Jane, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Jane, Humanscale has made such an enormous breakthrough this year with Living Product Challenge certification on 26 products, which is why, of course, you were named our top winner, overall winner for our products awards within the Planet Positive Awards. So tell us a little bit, what is the Living Product Challenge and why did you decide to go for such a huge milestone across your product range?
Well, the Living Product Challenge is the only time I've seen a certification that asks manufacturers, can you manufacture goods while leaving the world better off? And so there's a framework of measuring this, 20 different imperatives, and of course it's audited by a third party. And for Humanscale, this really aligned very well with our values. We have had a vision for sustainability where we've been aiming to leave the world better off while we manufacture. And that's something we've been working towards for a number of years. And it was really exciting when the Living Product Challenge came out and we saw the standard and saw that there's a way of measuring our progress. And so it doesn't measure the entire company, but of course it does measure for products. And our goal is to have as many products certified as possible to have as much positive impact on the world as possible.
Jane, can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of things that the Living Product Challenge measures or certifies?
It's a huge range from climate to water impacts to social impacts to materials health. There are 20 different categories and each have multiple different requirements for it. So there are requirements for the product itself, requirements for the operations facilities and the supply chain, and then for the company as well. So there's this range of, it's a very thorough standard. In fact, the audit process took over a year for us to be just audited. It was a very thorough, extensive evaluation.
That's incredible. 20 different categories and multiple criteria to meet within those. But I think that speaks to how we should be thinking about products now, right? Sustainability is not unidimensional, it is multidimensional. And we have to be taking care of all of those different aspects. What was your biggest challenge in getting the certification then? I mean, a year-long audit sounds arduous. How did you meet the criteria?
I think one of the things that we did was that we built it into the way we operate. So if we had looked at it as 25 or 26 separate certifications and separate products that needed to get certified, it would have been a phenomenal amount of work. It was really a certain amount of work. But what we did was we used it as a way of altering how we do our business, how business runs. And we just had the values of sustainability permeating all the different aspects of our business. It took a number of years to get from having 2 products certified now to having 26 products. I think it took us about 3.5 years to go through that, all the changes in the background that would happen. But we build things in systematically. So for example, it's a certain amount of work to make sure that one product line doesn't have a waste and meets the waste criteria. What we did with that was we learned from it and then we built it across all of the facilities and made sure all of our facilities facility-wide, not just for that product line, but the entire facility followed the same requirements for waste. And then we expanded that to include all of our facilities. So we really did it in a systematic way.
Um, that's amazing. Taking that sort of bigger approach across different product lines, and there's as you said, 26 different products certified, within this collection. Um, can you tell us what the certification means for Humanscale's specifiers and customers? What should designers be aware of when they specify one of these products?
Yeah, I think the first thing to think about is that this is the first time you can buy, or it's one of the first times in the building industry that you can buy products that actually leave the world better, that are climate positive, and you can we can give you the reporting on for a specific project, what the positive impact that was done because of that purchase. And that, we are able to bring up those numbers during the quote process. So you can, before you make a purchase decision, you can understand the amount of positive impact your purchase could have. And then after project is done, we could look at the total amounts of positive impact. That's a really interesting, different way of looking at your projects. Another really important thing to be aware of is kind of the bigger picture, is when you're making a decision based on, and it's influenced by sustainability, and you're asking manufacturers to step up and have a positive impact, and you show that that actually influences your purchasing decision, that really sends a very strong signal to manufacturers that this is important, that they should be doing this, and manufacturers do start to change. So I think one thing that's really worth noting is, as a specifier, as a designer, as an architect, your ask is very powerful. It really can help change the entire industry. So we're showing it's possible to be climate positive. And now I think it's we want to push it over to architects and designers to realize that since we show it's possible, maybe we can start to ask more from the entire industry.
Absolutely. I think that's really, really key. Now that we have these, responsible products, it's up to architects, interior designers, their consultants, their clients to really use them, leverage them in order to create a positive impact with their projects. Jane, can you give me an example or two of products within the set of 26, in terms of, what kinds of positive impact that they make? Can you tell us about maybe one or two of the products in terms of, what were the challenges in getting them certified and how they can make an impact in the world?
So we've been at some of this for a long time, and I'm going to tell one story that's a little bit older, and this dates back to around 2016, 2015, when we were we did a deep dive into our materials, and we found there was chrome 6 on the caster, the spindle to the caster that attaches it to the chair. We'd ordered a caster from a caster supplier, and then we ended up having to negotiate with that supplier to have them change from chrome 6, which is a red list ingredient, a chemical of concern, to change it to another coating. When they did that, they had to purchase other equipment, learn how to process it. We on our end had to do the engineering and the cycle testing, which took months. The whole process probably took about a year and a half to complete. But when we did that, now they offer casters not just to us with the healthier coating, but that's their standard now. So they offer that to everyone, and all of their other customers are getting a healthier material by default. So we start to make these changes. When you're dealing with mass production, sometimes these choices then get amplified again and again. The other thing I thought I would mention is a kind of a shout out to our operations team, in that one of the things that I'm really impressed with is that during 2020, which was such a challenging year for so many people in so many ways, on the operations side, there were so many changes. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion. And even during that, our operations team really held sustainability as very important. They managed to divert over 90% of waste from landfill from all of our factories worldwide. And that when you think about that, that is not just installing a piece of infrastructure. It means changing a culture, making sure every individual person who's working there knows what to do with material, that material is being well managed on big levels and even small individual decision levels. So really wanted to recognize our team for the amount of work they did, and making sure that on the back end, the operations are really operating sustainably, and they were able to create a culture of sustainability.
I love both of those examples because both of them represent the multiplying effects that good decisions can have, good decisions in manufacturing and good decisions in design. I just want to dig in just a little bit into that first example you gave, the changing out the chrome 6 finish on your casters, which can seem like such a minor thing, but chrome 6 is not unhealthy for the people who use your chair. It is unhealthy for the people who make the chair. And I think that's really key. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to make that switch?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways to think about that. And the first reaction, I think might be a common reaction to think, well, if I'm sitting in the chair, it might not be a problem for me as myself. And one thing that was an eye-opener internal at Humanscale was we saw a study published in 2018 that the Environmental Working Group had found unsafe levels of chrome 6 in over 75% of US drinking water. And what we realized that when you're using these chemicals in the manufacturing site, they don't just stay in one place. These chemicals that we're using get into the world, they get into our waterways, they really do start to affect all of our health. And then the other thing to consider is that in most cases, sometimes the chemicals that are being used, they are being processed in areas of lower socioeconomic, situations. And so we're looking at either countries that don't have great regulations to begin with, or even within the United States, you're looking at regions and areas where people are not in a major advantage to begin with, and then you're starting to use chemicals of concern in their neighborhoods, which really affects people's health, it affects children as they're developing. It really seemed like from the social side, it seemed extremely important not to be using chemicals of concern, because when you follow how they flow through the world, they do seem to be affecting people who are disadvantaged in a more significant way.
Jane, this kind of deep caring and deep thinking is why we gave Humanscale the Metropolis Planet Positive Award for really going into that depth of understanding of the supply chain, but also the impacts that you can have through those decisions. And I think what you've done is not just revolutionize your own manufacturing, but as you pointed out, I think you've given our industry a really important set of tools and a really important set of frameworks and proof that it can be done, that we can stop having a negative impact through our work as we're currently doing and have a positive impact on the people on the planet. Thank you so much, Jane, for joining me. And to everybody who's listening, just remember this, that, picking office chairs with the right casters on them, with the right finishes on them, can have that kind of an impact on communities across this country and around the world. Having Living Product Challenge certified products, having those kinds of levels of achievement in your products can ensure that on your projects you are not having unintended negative consequences in other places around the world, but also that you're making a positive impact on the world. Thank you so much for joining us today for Metropolis Planet Positive Product Live. We will be back in just a few minutes with another guest. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Metropolis Planet Positive Product Live. We're today talking to winners of the Metropolis Planet Positive Awards, products that make a positive impact on people and planet. I'm your host, Avi Rajagopal, Editor-in-Chief of Metropolis. Next up, we have our winner from our Architectural Systems and Facades category, Mecho. And joining me today is Rachel Berman, Sustainability Program Manager at Mecho. Rachel, such a pleasure to have you with me.
Hi, Avi. Thanks so much.
Rachel, the Mecho 7 system product that won the Metropolis Planet Positive Awards is a really impressive solution, but it's part of a long journey that Mecho's been on chemicals transparency and materials transparency. Can you talk to us a little bit about your cradle to cradle journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually started working with Cradle to Cradle all the way back in the late 90s. This was even before Cradle to Cradle was a product certification. At this point, it was really just a design methodology, and we really used it as a sustainability lens. We looked at the materials in our products down to 100 parts per million, and we also ensured that those materials were fully cyclable. And part of the standard was also looking at the water, the energy, and the social fairness strategies surrounding the product and the production of the materials. So we really started our cradle to cradle journey with our Ecobell shade cloth, which is PVC free, 100% recyclable, and it was modeled to look and perform like a vinyl coated polyester shade cloth, which really made it the first of its kind. Creating Ecobell was a significant accomplishment, but we consider our product to be the full shade system. So even though the fabric was certified, we knew that we needed to apply those same principles to our hardware systems. So in 2010, we successfully certified the Mecho 5 and Urban Shade manual system, making it the first complete, fully certified cradle-to-cradle shade system. So Mecho 7 uses similar materials as the Mecho 5 and Urban Shade systems. So it's not just about ensuring that we use the right materials, which we of course have to do, but it's also about understanding how circular principles inform a system's perspective. We need to ensure that we're designing for upgrade, designing for disassembly, and that's a really big part of our engineering and design process.
So Rachel, tell us about that. Tell us about how Mecho 7 embodies those principles. What are the benefits of using the Mecho 7 clutch system?
Absolutely. So it's really the design of this clutch system that really sets it apart and gives it its distinct benefits in the market, right? It's very different from any other manual shade system that's been released. With the Mecho 7 system, you're able to make bigger, larger shades that you can easily lift. Mecho 7 can actually have the ability to span over 30 feet wide. And as glass facades continue to become larger, we needed a shade system that could meet the form factor requirements and ensuring it was still easy to lift. So in the past, the difficulty of a larger shade is that the system is extremely heavy. But with the Mecho 7 system, you're actually able to specify pull force and ensure that it can be ADA compliant when needed. I've literally lifted this system with 2 fingers, and it is an incredible experience. The Mecho 7 also offers upgraded durability, including reducing the chain breakage so that the heavier shades won't impact the longevity of the system. And then last is the ability to upgrade the Mecho 7 manual system to a motorized application later in time.
Being able to lift a 30-foot shade with 2 fingers sounds pretty great to me, especially knowing that the shade and the system are C2C certified, that they meet all of those requirements, that they're not harmful to human health or the planet. That sounds amazing. You just talked about upgrades. Tell us about why is that a good thing? Why is it an advantage that you can specify this manual system first and then upgrade to a mechanical system down the road?
Absolutely. So, part of the ethos of many of our products is to always focus on using existing products versus trading something in for a brand new system. So, this actually also goes back to the cradle to cradle principles of designing products and systems for longevity, flexibility, adaptability. So, you're reducing the likelihood of a part ending up in a landfill. By enabling the Mecho 7 shade system to be upgraded to a motorized system down the line, you are simultaneously limiting items from being disposed while also reducing the amount of resources that are needed to make a new product. The lifespan of our manual shade system is 25 years in a commercial building. So this enables different tenants or even the same tenant to upgrade their space without ordering completely new shades. Another scenario in a commercial setting is when a landlord wires an entire building for automation and motorization and gives the tenant an option to purchase either manual or motorized shades. And then when the building uses our electro pocket, another component, which is designed to create easier access to the shade pocket, tenants can easily switch out manual or motorized shades without ripping up the wall or the ceiling, which again ends up with more products in the landfill and more resources to create new products. So these systems really enable full flexibility and adaptability in a space.
I love how you've considered every single point or stage where there might be waste because of changing site conditions, changing ownership, changing tenantship, and really creating a system that responds to that. That's absolutely wonderful. We know that one of the big sources of waste in our industry is that turnover of ownership or tenantship. It's also the change in building systems as buildings become more efficient, as there's more automation, which is generally a good thing. We have to find ways to reduce the wastage of legacy systems or older systems. So having that shade pocket that you don't need to rip out seems like a small detail, but it has such a huge impact on how we design and how we renovate and upgrade our buildings. So we spoke about the large span to fit large facades. We spoke about, the chemicals transparency, the responsible chemical or materials use. We've talked about reducing waste. We've talked about the potential of upgrade. So what types of projects do you see this Mecho 7 clutch system going into?
So the Mecho 7 system is really applicable for all different project typologies. We have healthcare, schools, corporate environments, and of course, hospitality. I'll give two examples. One is personal. When I recently had to stay at a hospital for my 4-month-old son in a healthcare application. So he was 5 weeks at the time, and we were in a beautiful room with these huge windows overlooking the East River. And then, but with these large expanses of glass, you had equally large manual shades. And, when I went to go lift this large shade, I literally needed 2 hands. But the challenge was that I had a newborn baby in one of them. So it was so difficult to lift. And even though I was on maternity leave this summer, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I had this Mecho 7 shade right now. It would be so much easier. So that is just a personal story where I could easily see this application. And then, last are schools, right? Studies continue to show that, natural daylight has important biological impacts on children, including higher test scores and reduced stress. And the best way to ensure children have the most access to daylight in schools is through automation. But oftentimes that option is out of scope in K through 12. And the Mecho 7 system makes it much easier for students to lift the shades and then therefore get more daylight in their space. So those are just 2 examples, but really any space would benefit from this type of a system.
What you've really pointed out to us is, beyond the cradle to cradle manufacturing and, landfill diversion tactics, beyond, this potential for upgrade, the Mecho 7 system is also, a system that supports inclusion and equity in our spaces, right? By making it easy to lift, by making it, also part of allowing people to control their own spaces, which, in addition to having, access to daylight and access to good interior environmental quality, one of the big ways to ensure wellness is to give people a sense of control over the spaces they're in. And I think this does that as well, which is why, of course, it's fantastic. And one of the reasons why we gave it a Metropolis Planet Positive Products Award. Rachel, is there anything else to add? Anything that designers or specifiers should know when they pick a Mecho 7 clutch system shade?
No, I think we covered all the bases at this point. I'm really excited to be on here today and speak with you about the new system. And, we're starting to install it in projects and buildings, and we're just really excited to keep innovating and, keep pushing the limits with window shading and really thinking about that long life cycle of our products and making sure that we're building for quality and durability and sustainability at the same time.
So to all the architects and designers who are joining us, you see how individual decisions on products can have a multidimensional positive impact in the world, right? By using systems like Mecho 7, you can have an impact on environmental health, human health, and on equity. And that is the kind of thoughtfulness we need in product selection in our projects today. So thank you so much for joining us, Rachel, and thank you all of you for joining us today. We'll be back in just a minute with more Planet Positive Product Live. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Metropolis Planet Positive Product Live. Today, we're looking into some of the amazing products that have won the Metropolis Planet Positive Awards and won them because they make a positive impact on both people and the planet. I have with me today Ryan Smith, President and Creative Director of LightArt, whose LightArt Coil Collection Naturals won a Metropolis Planet Positive Award. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thanks, Avi. Yeah, pleasure. This is always fun to join you in conversation.
So Ryan, tell me about the Coil Collection. Where did this idea of coils come from?
Yeah, gosh. Well, I'll give you a little bit of history on this product line for us. We had this concept about taking our material and basically scrap material and trying to figure out a way to print it. And this, was this a little bit of our kind of internal mission statement about how to reuse our material. And so we wanted to actually make shapes that we also can't make here in our studio. A lot of our typical materials are starting at a flat, starting point or sheet. So we said, well, if we can get this material sort of reformulated and we can, use a different type of machine to make a fixture, that's kind of a cool way to start the thinking. And so it kind of led us to 3D printing, or really it's an extruder. So a lot of things get extruded, and we were able to find a very big machine and start, kind of playing with this process. And that kind of led us to fundamentally the coil shape, which is this idea of, kind of continuously, printing a line. And we just left it a little bit obvious. We wanted it to be a series of lines and let it celebrate a little bit of that construction and technique. And it also reminded us a little bit of how pottery, was made a long time ago. So there was all these things kind of coming together at the same time. And then we really started to focus on the line and actually writing G code that made the line slightly wiggle in the machine. And so we got very specific about the look of this, but also at the same time letting it be this really kind of simple shape. But fundamentally, it all came from this material story for us. So the material story is the really important part of it.
I love that, that it started with trying to reuse your own waste and scrap, but then reusing it through this really innovative manufacturing process. What are some of the advantages of using this kind of digital fabrication process, 3D extrusion or printing? Why did you decide to go down that route?
Well, it was, maybe an interest in early on, saying, I think manufacturing at some point, whether it's, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years from now, is going to involve this type of technology. You're hearing a lot about it, with homes being built this way and things like that. We're still in the early phase of it. And I think it's always a lot of fun to be at that early stage where you're really experimenting with something. You don't know where it's going to quite go yet, but you do have this kind of gut feeling like, oh, it's like the Commodore 64, right? I mean, at some point, everyone was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, what do we do with this original, computer? And that to me was sort of the fun starting point. What we didn't realize was how effective it could be to take and transform our material. And so that's where we started to sort of say, okay, let's get past the sort of obviousness of the technology, but get to a point where the look is interesting and the material inputs make sense for what we're doing, and kind of taking all of those things. It really took quite a while to figure this out, more than we hoped, but all of a sudden these things started to come together, and these shapes kind of emerged. And so it became less about the shape at the end of the day. It was more about the process and the material and kind of the goal or mission we had to kind of solve this challenge that we gave ourselves.
So we've been talking about this lighting collection. Can you tell us what the parts of the collection are?
Yes. So we started with 7 shapes. There's this idea of creating, all shapes that were vessel-like, and we love, again, that kind of pottery reference. Then we said, let's start with black and white. So the original collection was 7 shapes that were black, and we chose black and white because the material transformed. We sort of had dirty batches and clear batches of the material. Once we started to separate them out internally, we chip it up and we run it through a sorting machine, so we can sort of spit out, the parts we don't want, and then we can rebatch it. So a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but we started to sort of think about that just from, again, the material side. But then we like the idea of creating the simplicity around the shapes, and so they sort of went, hand in hand. And then, as we expanded it, we wanted to add color, which is an obvious, kind of need in the design space, but do it in a sort of interesting way, I think, kind of a natural way. And that also allowed us to think about more shapes. I mean, the hard part is I think with this technology, I mean, you're so tempted to want to do all sorts of things, right? I mean, you want to like print these crazy shapes and try to make the biggest thing in the world. And, that at some point you have to sort of pull yourself back and sort of say, yes, that's possible. We can do those things. But what are we really trying to do? And I think we're really trying to tell a kind of honest story about how we are thinking about this from the material perspective, creating hopefully a beautiful looking object and making it out of components, that are, you have the transparency, labels, and, kind of forward thinking initiatives that we're putting on ourselves to solve, as a lighting company. And so all of that is coming together in the Coil Collection. So it has a lot of, I guess it's a bit hard to describe in one sentence, but you know, it's material, it's transparency labels, it's shape, it's color, it's design. It's sort of an ethos in a way too for us as we go forward. I think we really are starting to get excited about this category for us in the future.
And it's really exciting to see how really a technology breakthrough and a creative breakthrough comes out of essentially, you know, a mission that was rooted in sustainability, which is really important. You spoke about transparency documentation for this light. Every one of these lamps comes with a PVC-free cord, and it's also finished with a TGIC-free powder-coated canopy. What are the significance of those two components?
Well, we have, we were trying to pursue the declare label. And so underneath the declare label, you need to have all of your ingredients disclosed. We unfortunately cannot get one of the ingredients formally disclosed. We have, you know, kind of a affidavit that we could use, or you know, sort of a post documentation. And it's not a bad ingredient. It's just if you can't get it from the manufacturer, you're not allowed to do a declare label. So what we wanted to do was do everything we can to get a declare label, which is the cord, the powder coat, all the ingredients have to be clean. You know, they can't have red list components, which none of these parts do. And our effort is to slowly start to transform the core materials to a point where work with a manufacturer that can give us that final bit of information so we can have declare labeled fixtures as our baseline. That was really kind of our goal with all this. And I think, you know, there's stepping stones with all these efforts for sure.
Yeah, you know, it's really exciting because lighting is such a challenging category for circularity, primarily because of components like PVC cords. You know, PVC cords, when they reach their end of their life, essentially the only way to recover the copper within them is to burn the PVC off, with huge impacts to human health, especially in the communities that are doing that kind of work. So it's really significant, I think, to make those replacements and then be transparent about it. That's absolutely fantastic. And one of the reasons, that kind of thoughtfulness is one of the reasons why the Coil Collection Naturals got the Metropolis Planet Positive Award. But it's part of a longer journey that you've been on, Ryan, at LightArt, as a lighting company who wants to do the right thing for climate, for health, for resilience, for all the things that we care about within sustainability. Can you talk a little bit about LightArt's broader journey with sustainability?
Yeah, for sure. It's something we're very passionate about and continue to get more passionate about. I think the cords is a great example because we used that for a couple of our early declare label products. And then we said, why are we carrying two cords? You know, let's just order all PVC-free cord. And so we started and did that with the powder coating too. So we're starting to just take all of our processes. And sometimes you feel like you're walking up a sandhill, you know, and you're not getting very far. But, you know, these little steps start to add up, and then pretty soon they become fundamental pieces of what you do every day. And I just think it's so important to do that because the lighting world, aside from LEDs, which has been great for energy conservation, but there's still a lot of things that are rooted in kind of the 80s and 70s and 90s. You know, it's time to sort of bring these things up to modern day. And, you know, we just need to, like, I think people are wanting it. We want to be able to talk about taking fixtures back and sort of the future of our material world. I mean, my background's architecture, so I'm always thinking about that constructed world, and, you know, solving these problems is just another architectural challenge at the end of the day. And it's pretty exciting. And I think you feel good doing that. Like the reasons why these parts are the way they are, they're made in a clean way. I mean, the cord, I think, is used in hospitals because it is PVC free. So those kind of things that make sense in a health condition are become really obvious at the end of the day.
Right, right. Well, Ryan, it's always an inspiration to talk to you and to see the kinds of breakthroughs that LightArt is making year after year, pushing the lighting industry closer towards sustainability. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. And if you want to know more about LightArt's Coil Collection Naturals, head over to lightart.com. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, Avi. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our Metropolis Planet Positive Product Live. I hope you've had a great time seeing how products can make a great impact on both people and the planet. Have a great day.